Hi, everybody. Another very warm welcome to yet another Friday Live with ourselves, Keyboard World. And today we're featuring Korg PA5X. But I've already seen some of the comments. And actually, it doesn't matter what keyboard you own, you can always learn something. And actually, I'll start by saying something I hadn't intended to say, and that's a lot of people believe that the Yamaha and the Korg are so drastically different, but actually, as you'll see from what we're going to do this afternoon, there are so many similarities. You know, don't believe that these manufacturers don't watch each other, and if there's a good idea out there, it will get copied. You know, that's fact. That's what happens. They keep a close eye on each other, and as one manufacturer does something, believe it or not, it'll come out either in an update or on the next model from somebody else. What is different is just terminology. That's probably the biggest difference. Of course, there is a sound difference. You know, the Korg sound is different to the Yamaha sound, and which you prefer is purely down to personal preference, nothing else. They're both unbelievable products, and I know some of you are in that very fortunate position. You've got both, so that's wonderful. But yeah, what we're going to cover this afternoon, even if you own a Yamaha, please bear with us because there'll be a lot to learn. Also going to begin by saying we might have a few less people on. I didn't realise when I arranged this, just had one of the big keyboard festivals, which ended this morning here in the UK. So a lot of people who normally join us will be travelling home from that week's festival as we're actually doing this, but I'm sure they'll catch up live. I've had quite a few emails in, which is always nice for people to actually sort of send their apologies that they won't be on live. But yeah, I've got quite a bit to get through. I'm going to let you into a little secret. There is a sort of phrase which everybody knows about, you know, getting something done by the skin of your teeth, and that applies to today's webinar. Sometimes I had a couple of ideas, but sometimes I sit here and I stare at the keyboard, and if I'm tell you the honest truth, you have a complete blank as to, you know, what can I do this week. And if I tell you that at 2:00 the pages of my little notebook, which I can look at up there, was still blank, and I actually finished putting the last bit of this webinar together as that sort of intro music was playing there. And just to prove how puddled my brain was at that point, I found this funny. I looked up and saw the intro music playing, and obviously there is a still photo there. And I thought, oh dear, I've left my posting receipts. I could see them on the desk. But when I looked round, they weren't there. And, you know, it took me all of 30 seconds to realise I was looking at a photograph that was taken weeks ago and not as the office is today. So, yeah, this is anything could happen time today. But what I thought we'd do, just to allow me to draw breath, is do something a bit different. Start with a little piece of music. And this is, I think it's a lovely song, and it's quite appropriate, really, to start with this. It's a little one by the Carpenters, and it's called We've Only Just Begun. There we go, a little bit of the Carpenters there. Sorry I didn't switch the camera right at the beginning, but I did remember eventually. Okay, thank you for that. Beautiful song. Actually, that's not the song we're going to do today. So we're going to cover a few little hints and tips first, and then I'm going to put it all together, and I want to show you on the Korg a very different way to use a set list. But we'll come to that in a second. But got a few questions that need answering first. And the first one, and I'm going to get this one out the way because I just fear that a few people may find this slightly heavy going. I really hope that you'll bear with me on this. And somebody's saying, did you make that style? No, it's actually a sequence that I did in the sequencer. So I hope that answers your question, Jim. In the last issue of the magazine, if any of you subscribe to it, we did a little thing which, in all honesty, I didn't know whether it would go down very well or not. But judging by the comments we had, it actually went really, really well. And it was a thing that I use for demonstrating a lot. And it was the theme from 2001, A Space Odyssey. And the reason I put it in is that on both Yamaha and Korg, you have a sound. And on Korg, it's called Orchestra Tutti. I think on Yamaha, it's called Tutti Orchestra. See what I mean about them copying each other? So what it is, it's a great sound you can just use across the whole keyboard. And you've got things like strings and horns here. And down in the bottom end, we've got timpanis and cymbal crash. The problem is, and this is the problem somebody spotted, to get that cymbal crash, you actually have to hit the keys quite hard. In all honesty, probably a lot harder than many people like to hit their keyboard. They think they're going to do some damage. I assure you they are designed such to be able to take that level of velocity. But what I want to do, now just bear with me on this, I want to delve you into the voice edit section. It's frightening, but I want to show you how easy it can be if you just relax, take a deep breath, follow what I'm doing. It's not difficult. So all I want to do, I want to change this so that I don't have to hit too hard. Let's just show you it as it is now. Okay, that's the effect we're trying to achieve. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we go into Record, Edit. And up in the top right-hand corner on the PA5X is a little icon, a little tile marked Sound Edit. And we're going to go in, and it's called up the sound that we're talking about. Now, at this stage, it doesn't look too daunting. We've got attack, decay, and release. We've got cut-off, resonance. You're probably familiar with those because they're in part of the sound edit menu as well. So what's different in here? Well, the magic happens when we press the menu button. So we press menu. Now we have a new series of tiles. And the good news is we're only going to look at one of them. And guess what? It's called Basic. So hopefully that's put your mind at rest. Look, the others, we can do all sorts of things. In this area here, we can delve in and we can pick a sound apart. We can create a new sound from scratch. We can change effects. We can do all manner of things. But all we want to do is change the velocity of that symbol. So here's how we do it. We press Basic. We're then faced with a familiar series of tabs. This is how these screens work. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Let's go to the top one that says Sound. I don't want to go too deep, but up here it says Oscillator Count. What does that mean? Well, an oscillator is a sound. So this particular sound, Orchestra Tutti, is made up of 5 sounds. Or think of it another way, there are 5 components to this sound. How do we see what those components are? Well, we come to the second tab that says Oscillator. Now, I don't know whether you can see down at the bottom of the screen, you'll probably see it more in the little screen insert. The first 5 buttons are illuminated, everything else is greyed out. These are our 5 elements or 5 components of the sound. If I press Oscillator 1, it actually tells me in the screen it's timpani. If I go to Oscillator 2, Orchestra Crash, there's our symbol. So we know where we're going. Just out of interest, let's look at Oscillator 3, French Horn Ensemble. Number 4 is String Ensemble, and number 5 is the same sound, String Ensemble. But actually, my eye can catch some figures changing down at the bottom here. What they've done is put 2 string sections together and slightly detuned them to give that sort of realistic orchestra sound. So I'm going to go back to Oscillator 2 because we have found the culprit. Now what we want to do is alter the behaviour of that sound. Well, if we come to the next tab down, it says Velocity and Range. So let's go there. Now, we can learn a lot here by looking at this sound. I'm going to set it back to its default. Now, the bottom figure on velocity is 112. What does that mean? That means I have to hit with a strength of 112. Bear in mind the maximum is 127 to get that symbol to sound. Okay, so if you realise the top figure is 127, I'm sure you'll understand that 112 is well on the way to that. So, like I said, you have got to give it a bit of a thump. All you need to do is highlight that bottom figure, and I'm going to change that, and I'm going to bring it down to, let's say, 80. Okay. Now, I don't have to hit so hard to make that cymbal come in. In fact, I'm just hitting a little bit harder than normal. Now, when you're determining that figure, and don't panic if you're watching now, this is the most in-depth thing we're going to do today. That bottom figure, you need to get it to a level where you can control it, so you don't want it on all the time. If this figure's right down, you're not going to be able to avoid playing the cymbal all the time. And it'll be different for every individual, depending on your touch, the type of touch you play with. So you need to set a figure where you can control it, but you also need to set a figure that, like I said, is going to work so that you're not bringing this in by mistake. 80 will work for me, so that's good. Now, the other problem I have with the sound, if it is a problem, is that cymbal crash actually plays across the whole keyboard. And actually, I don't want it up here. I only want it in the bass section. So we now come to the next section down, keyboard range. And bear in mind, this is only for oscillator 2, which is the crash cymbal. Now, my first note for 2001 is that C. So I don't want the cymbal to play any higher than the note before that, which is the B. Now, I happen to know that is B3. So what we do is we set the top key and we bring this down until it says B3. And that's it. So now, no matter how hard I hit, no cymbal. Hit down here, and we've got the cymbal. So now I can test it at this point. It's a big sound. But now it's playing the way I want it to play. Now, I think the biggest fear with most people in going into this section is they think they're going to lose the original sound. Once and for all, you cannot lose that. The factory sounds are protected, as are the factory styles. You can't change them. You can edit them and save them somewhere else, which is what we're about to do. So all I need to do is go up to the 3-line menu in the top right hand corner, save sound. And it immediately guides you to the user banks. And all you've got to do is find a blank space where, so yeah, I'm gonna put it in that blank slot there. I am going to change the name just so that I know what it is in future. I'm calling it Orchestra Tutti Edit. You might be more creative than me, but that will do for now. Save. And that is that. We can come out of there. It says edits will be lost if it's not saved. Well, I have saved it, so I can come back out of there. So when I want to play that 2001 in future, I just go to upper one, but I don't go to the factory sounds. I go into the user sounds, Orchestra Tutti Edit, and away you go. It's not difficult to do that. And actually, when you, like I said, if you take a bit of a deep breath and look at it logically, the tab was there, velocity and range. We've covered that in other things before where we've created extra splits on the keyboard. So that's a great little feature to be able to go in and do that. Okay, we will move on to the next question that I had. And that was, this is quite a simple one to answer. It's about, if you're a Yamaha owner, you'll know it as one-touch settings, and we call it keyboard sets on the Korg here. On Yamaha, there is a great feature called OTS Link, which basically means as you go through your rhythm variations, it automatically links to the 4 one-touch settings. And it means what could be a 2-button press or change can just become a 1-button change. And a lot of people use that. You've got exactly the same facility here on the Korg, but it's a bit hidden away now. We used to have it on a button. on PA4X out on the panel, and it's out on the panel on PA1000, PA700. But here we have to go into the user settings, and we need to be on the buttons. And by default, under number 7 is style to K-set, style to keyboard set. Now, there are actually 3 modes. There is when it's off. That basically means if I go in and choose a style, whatever sound I've got on, so we've still got Orchestra Tutti on. So if I go in and choose a factory style, let's go Hey Jude, okay, it's loaded the 4 keyboard sets to go with Hey Jude, but it hasn't pre-selected any of them. I've still got my Orchestra Tutti until I manually go in and choose one of those 4 keyboard sets. Now, why would you want that mode? You might want that mode because you're playing a medley of things and you want to finish, and you're finishing on a sound and you're getting the next bit ready. So until you're ready, you don't want it to select a sound. So that's why you would use that mode. The second mode is to have the light on permanently. When the light is on permanently, it doesn't matter what keyboard set number you've been on. As soon as you choose another style, it will automatically choose keyboard set number 1. So you don't have to think about selecting it. It automatically does it, and it always defaults to number 1. The third mode is if you press this button again, and this is what some people don't always do, and you'll see the third mode, the light actually flashes. This is the equivalent of Yamaha's OTS link, one-touch setting link. So now, as I go through my variations, so you will see it will automatically change the registration for me in the screen. All 3 modes have their uses, so don't think you're going to put it on one mode and keep it on that. But this is a global setting. So if you've got it set off, it will be set off until such time you actually change it to do what you want to do. And that brings me to the next question, and this is the final question, and then we'll go on to looking at some slightly different things. And that is, people are saying, well, yeah, I choose one of the, I don't know, let's just go into a basic ballad. I choose piano ballad, and yeah, I like this, but I don't want melodica at the end. It's not a sound I would have chosen. So how do we change that? Well, I could call it melodica and I could change that sound. So I'm going to say I want a saxophone instead. So I'll go to factory, saxophone, and for now and simplicity, I'm just going to choose tenor sax. That's fine. I've got tenor sax. But how do I get it in that slot so that every time I call it piano ballad, I can have a saxophone there and not what Korg decided I was going to have there? Well, if I go to my little menu at the top and I try to save keyboard set, it doesn't give me any choice other than saving that saxophone in our keyboard set library. I don't want to do that. I want to link it to that particular style. Well, I said something a few minutes ago. I said the factory sounds and the factory styles are protected. You cannot alter that as being the default setting. But actually you can, and we can do it in a really easy way. All we need to do is choose the style that we wish to change one or more of the keyboard sets. I'm going to go up to the 3-line menu and I'm going to go to Save Style. Now, as with that sound we just created, there is only one place it will let you store that style, and that's in the user section. You can't write back to the factory bank, so there is no panic. So look, I'm just going to find an empty slot somewhere. Let's go user 2's got no styles in, so we'll pop it in there. Save. Okay, up in my screen now, it's changed from saying FTY for factory. It's gone to user, and it's in user bank 2, and it's piano ballad. Now what I can do, I can go up and I can say save keyboard set. Now look, we've got a different menu. Because it's a user style, I can either save it to the library, but actually I want to save it to that particular style. So first thing I need to do is change the name from Melodica. I'll just put sax. Okay. And I'm going to save it to which position. Look, I've got a pull down menu and I've got the choice of all 4 positions. Well, yeah, it was position 4, Melodica, save. There we go. So now, when I want to play a piano ballad, instead of going to the factory version, let's load the factory version back, which has got Melodica in, I would go to my user bank and choose my version of that. And lo and behold, we've got a saxophone. So all you need to do is copy the style or save it into the user bank, and then you can change all 4 of these. And that, in a funny sort of way, has become my factory piano ballad. I hope that makes sense to you. It's very easy to do again. You've just got to save the style. And then when you go to change... Well, look, now we've got it on user. Let's change one other sound so I can just show you again. Do I want piano and strings? No, I don't. I'm just going to have strings on their own in number 2. So let me select number 2. I'm going to select a different keyboard set from my library. So I'm going to go in and what shall we choose? Let's choose natural strings. Okay, so we exit from there. So I can see we've got the strings. Now when we go to save keyboard set, look, we've got this menu again. I don't need to save them to the library because that's where I got it from. Oh, hang on. I believe as you save the style, but it had changed to sax. Yes, it does, because I had sax there, but I just wanted to show you the menu of how to do it and to change the name. So we've got the name of natural strings. I want to change it. I want to link it to that style in position 2. There we go. Save. And it's done. So now, whenever in future, let's go back to the factory one. We've got piano and strings, overdrive guitar, melodica. My version is in my user bank. Sorry, missed it. User bank. There we go. I've got piano, natural strings, overdrive guitar, and saxophone. So it's people have sort of written in saying, well, I know you can link a sound to a style, but you can't do it direct from a factory style. You've just got to save that factory style as a user style, and then you get that option, and you can create your version of the factory styles. There's a classic one in here. There's a setting for the Lionel Richie song, All Night Long. And I think the first registration is something like an Hawaiian guitar. Now, to me, there is no place for a Hawaiian guitar in the song All Night Long. So I just copied it across to the user bank and put the sound that I wanted in there. So let's give you an example of how I changed all 4 sets and basically just created it. You can either do it as a songbook entry, but actually this way is a little bit easier. You can just copy the style across and quite easily then change all 4 settings if you want to. So let me just go into this here. I always this was another demonstration one of mine when I was in retail. I used to do this big band version of the Beatles song Can't Buy Me Love. And I use a style called Big Band Shuffle. So let's just see what the factory one actually throws up. It throws up brass, clarinet, piano, and jazz guitar. Now, I don't want that. I want 4 totally different styles, sounds rather. So all I would do is go save style, save it to a blank user space. Then I've got the option of linking any 4 keyboard sets that I want, or creating some new ones to link with it, to go with it. So here's what I've actually ended up with. If I just call up my version of it, I've ended up with smooth band, brass, jazz organ, and big solo. Okay, let's just play you a little bit of it. We won't do the whole thing, but basically it goes like this. There we go. So you can see that I've just changed those 4 settings completely. And doing it that way, a lot of people find that easier than creating a songbook entry and then going in. You can do it either way. The choice is yours. Okay, this next little bit, just before we go on to the putting the piece together, because that's really the culmination of everything I'm sort of showing you today. There's 2 things I want to cover before we go into the tune. The first one is, when you do things like this, yeah, I'm able to change all of the sounds, and that's great, and I can edit the style a little bit. The real problem is, within that song, I can only use that style, because that style is linked to those 4 sounds, and it's not easy to change the style. Yes, you could put the keyboard lock on, so we could do that, and we could have this, and you could actually select a different style, but it's not ideal. It doesn't work perfectly. But there are pieces where you might want a change in style. Put the octave 1 step higher. Sorry, I'm not quite understanding what you mean by that. But anyway, there are pieces where you might distinctively want a change in style. And this is where I'm going to lead now to what we're going to do ultimately at the end of this webinar. I'm going to show you a different way to use a set list. Now, set lists, you may be familiar with them. Let me just call up one of my own set list here. Trying to think what it's called now. Let's go down, demo set. There we go. So a set list. What is a set list? It's a way of categorizing all of your songbook entries. So let me take this back a stage. Songbook on Korg is where we store everything. I always refer to it as your filing cabinet. Got a filing cabinet at home. Every bit of paperwork you've got, should do. I'm not very good at that. It goes into the filing cabinet. The problem is, if you just stuff everything into a filing cabinet, you then can't find anything. Set lists are, we can put dividers in a drawer of a filing cabinet, and that divides things up. We have paperwork for the car, paperwork for the house, we have insurance documents, we have all sorts of different things. That's what a set list is. It's a way of actually breaking the whole of the songbook down into manageable sections. But the way most people use a set list is, I've got this because I've got links here to all the particular songs that I just want to pull out instantly from my songbook. If I went to my book, I've got to scroll through all of these entries, albeit they're in alphabetical order, but I've still got to scroll through them and find the ones I want. Whereas a set list, if I want to play Yesterday, I just tap that and we exit, and there are my 4 settings for Yesterday. So I could just start to play. Whoops. Okay, what didn't I do at the beginning? Slap on the wrist. I didn't set my style to keyboard set, so it called up the first sound. So I'd still got the brass sound on for the last, from the last little piece we did, the Can't Buy Me Love. Go back to my set list, and if I wanted to play Speak Softly Love, The Godfather, it's there. So all the sounds I want. So these little squares or rectangles in your set list, it doesn't mean you've got the same song saved twice. This is just a shortcut. If you think in terms of computers, you have shortcuts on your desktop. It's not always the actual program, or it's not always the actual document. It's a shortcut that when you click on it, it goes and finds the document and opens it. And all this does, it's a shortcut that plucks one particular element or one song out of the songbook. And this is the traditional way you'd use it. You'd have each one of these for one song. But I want to show you a slightly different way of using them. If any of you were brought up on organ, or you have a Yamaha at home as well, you will be used to what they call registration buttons. And on Genos, they're right in the middle. You've got them numbered right across the middle there. When we used to play organs, sometimes you'd have buttons in between the 2 keyboards, and that's where you stored your settings, and you could put 10 settings in for one song, and you just go from one to the other. I want you to think of these squares as those preset buttons. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my set list here. So let's just go. Oops. There we go. That's for today. I've got 2 entries here. One says Bossa Nova Wave. It's the song Wave. And I've got Bossa Wave Swing. Now, think of these as registration buttons. Don't think of them each time now as being 4 sounds in that one, 4 sounds in that one. I just want you to think, when I call that one up, I get 1 sound. And when I go to that, I get another sound. But more importantly, I could have a different rhythm. This comes back to the style to keyboard set mode. If you remember, if the light is on permanently, when you go through any of these, it will automatically call up keyboard set number 1. So providing you've got the correct sound for each of these in keyboard set number 1, you could achieve something like this. Now, that is different because I'm not stuck with the same rhythm. I was actually able to go to a swing type rhythm just for the middle 8 there and then come back to my bossa nova. Now, there's just 2 tabs. I could add an extra one to that. I could add 5 more to that, and I could have 1 square, 1 box for every part of the song that I want to play. It's just a great way of using the keyboard. So if I go to that first one, Bossa Wave, let's say I wanted to change that first keyboard set to being a saxophone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Book and I'm going to edit my entry. And I'm going to choose saxophone. So let's go, let's just choose natural tenor sax. That's fine. Where do I want to store it? I want to store it in position 1 because that's the one that's going to come up when I press it. So I need to save this songbook entry. Now I don't want to overwrite the one I've already got. So I'm going to create a new songbook entry and I'm going to call it Bossa Wave Sax. Oh, didn't leave a space, but it doesn't matter. There we go, save it. There we go. It said it already exists because I was messing about earlier. If I tap my book button, there it is, Bossa Wave Sax. And all I need to do is add that to my set list. In the last position, yep, that means it'll tag it on the end. So now let's look at our set list. We've got Bossa Wave, which has got piano. Oh, sorry, let's choose it. Then we've got our jazz guitar for the swing section. Then we come to the last one. So we can now put it all together just quickly like this. There you go, and so on. So this is, to me, this is just a totally different way to use the set list. And bear in mind, you could have a set list for every single song, and you can have as many of those tabs as you want for each song. To be honest, you don't need loads and loads. It's not very often you need more than sort of 5 or 6. The only thing you have to remember when you make any change to a set list, I don't know whether you can see on the little screen insert, we've got a little asterisk up at the top there. That's just a warning, really. It's just telling you something's changed and you need to save and update your set list before you switch the instrument off. So I'm going to go up to there, save set list. There you go. Yes. Now, you probably, the eagle-eyed of you will see that my set list is called Somewhere in Time, because that's actually what we're going to do in a second. If I go back to page 1, you will see that I've created 8 different settings for Somewhere in Time, and I've used some of the things we've talked about today. So the first tab uses Movie Ballad. Actually, it doesn't, because you'll see in a minute, that's just piano all the way across the keyboard. The first rhythmic element of this piece, I'm using a style called Love Movie. But then when I go on to the next registration, we're using Movie Ballad. So I'm able to not just stick with the same style all the way through. I can actually use different styles, providing they blend together well and you get the volumes right. It can work really, really effectively. And just before we go on to that, here's the last little tip I'm going to give you. Excuse me while I just have a drink. I'm a bit croaky today. Hang on one second. There we go. By the way, it's lovely to see we've got nearly 70 people on again. We've got the usual thumbs down, but hey, doesn't matter. So, yeah, in fact, it's gone down to 67. They've probably just disappeared. I love it, really. What this came about, really, somebody who has lessons with me, we were trying to create a certain effect. And what he hadn't realised was that you can add what they call insert effects into a style. And that can transform a style totally. So I'm going to give you a little example of it here. Let's go back into my set list. I've very creatively called these Piano Ballad Normal and Piano Ballad FX. That's just so that my simple brain knew which was which. Piano Ballad Normal. Let's just play it. That's the standard piano ballad. If we go to variation 1, have a listen to the actual piano part. It's just playing 4 beats to the bar. 2, 3, 4. Okay. When we go to Piano Ballad FX, now I'm going to go into the mixer on the style side to show you this. Let's just solo that piano part. So there it is. That's just that piano. What I've actually done is added an insert effect. And you just go to insert effect, go to the column, which is accompaniment 1, and I've added some delay. Listen to what it's done to that piano now. So it's now playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and instead of just 1, 2, 3, 4. I can do other things. Let's listen to the guitar part in accompaniment 2. Oh, let me switch the effect off. This is it to start with. Now, what have I done here? I've added, now stay calm, I've added an exciter. Have a listen to the difference it makes. I'm going to switch it on now. Made it a much brighter sound. It's brought it much more forward in the mix. And I've done exactly the same with the drums. So if we just listen to the drums on their own, let's take the guitar out. There's the drums. I'm going to put the exciter on. It's really brought those cymbals out. So I hope you're going to be able to hear this through the video. Let's just play something on the normal pattern, and then I'll switch to the FX pattern. And just what you need to understand is we're talking about the same style on the same variation. But by putting the effects in, it's going to make it sound like either a different variation or a different rhythm altogether. So, like this. Let's go to the variation. Back to normal. And even on the ending there, you heard the piano just bouncing off into the distance. So what I want to just remind you of, these FX, things like delays, reverb, they're not just about the right-hand sounds. You can actually create some really, really interesting things. I'll do this ever so quick because I want to get on with the other bit. I did one here, Shack Attack. Do you remember the great sort of funk jazz band of the 80s? Still going strong. I just want, again, for you to hear the style. That's the normal one. This is when I've put some effects on. It is almost like you've got a different style or a totally different variation, and using it like this, I can actually use it as a variation. But again, can I just remind you, you're hearing the same style on the same variation. Back to the original. And so on and so forth. You can have such great fun doing that. So look, all the things I've showed you today, I just want to put them together now as one complete song. And the song that I quickly put together, and honestly, this was finished during the countdown for the webinar, so I haven't had time to check this. I do hope it works. What I've done is I've treated each one of these as an individual sound. Yes, if you exit and look, you will always have loaded 4 keyboard sets, but I'm not bothered about that. With keyboard style to keyboard set on lit, it will always just choose registration 1 of each one of these. So we're using registration presets. I've already said to you, you'll hear elements of different styles coming in. I've used some effects. And this is just a way now that without the restraints of just 4 sounds, I can build a song up and change the character of it by bringing different style elements in. So what have I done? In the very first one, I'm just going to play a little piano intro. I think if you remember when we were on Genos and we did Somewhere Out There, we did the first little intro as just a piano. Now what I've got here is a piano, but I've I've added a little pad sound called Nature Pad. It's a lovely little effect, and it just builds up in the background. And all I'm going to do when I've finished the little intro and go into the first bit of the tune on piano, I'm just going to switch that Nature Pad off, and we'll just use piano. So here's the effect we're going to get to start with. Yeah, you can probably hear little birds tweeting and little atmospheric things going on in the background. So then we're going to go into piano. Then I'm going to go back to the beginning, and we're going to introduce a little bit of rhythm element in. Now, because I'm not sure that I've saved every one of these at the same tempo, I'm just going to put the tempo lock on, because that will ensure that everything stays the same. So we'll go into the tune. That's nice. And that's using a style called Love Movie. When I go to the next registration, it's using a different ballad. Still nice and gentle in the background. And we'll have elements of different styles. And then when we get right to the end, I've gone back to Love Movie, but on variation 4. Which is very different from the movie ballad. Let's change. So I can't stress enough how much more flexible this makes it, because you're not stuck on the same style, and you're not just stuck with 4 sounds. I've probably overdone this, but I've got 8 sounds there that we're going to use for this piece. So what I'd like to do is just sort of finish up today's little bit just by playing this through. If anybody's got any questions, type them up and we'll try and answer them before we go off air today. Everything I've shown you today culminates in this. And everything I've shown you today, I believe all of you can actually do. Some of you have probably decided you can't do it, but I assure you, you can. And probably the most important thing to take from today is you cannot ruin your keyboard. You're not going to lose any of the factory sounds. You're not going to lose any of the factory styles. So even if you delve for the first time into this voice edit section, don't panic, okay? It will not let you save anywhere other than a user section. If you decide not to save and you just exit out, I assure you, with all my heart, the factory styles, the factory sounds will always remain the same. So look, let's give this a go. Take on board what I've said about using set lists in a different way, and we'll give this a go. It should, with a bit of luck, go like this. There we go. So that's my quite hurried version of Somewhere in Time. But I hope it's that the whole thing today has given you a few ideas and a totally different approach, really, to using this keyboard. Something which I forgot to mention, and I think this is worth just touching on before we finish. In the second registration where I had the oboe, I also had a nice little pad sound with it. I don't know whether you will have noticed, but I played something like... I did some little things on the pad there. Because I'd set the oboe to be a mono voice. And that means it will only play the top note. So I can do different things now below with the pad sound without the oboe playing everything, which we've talked about before. An oboe can only play one note at a time. So, keep things real. What I'm really trying to get you all to do is just experiment. Sometimes think a little bit more out of the box. So I hope you've enjoyed that. As always, I always enjoy spending an hour or so with you. Any subscribers to the magazine, the next issue will be out before the end of the month. It's almost there. Just also a little bit of news is that the business has grown and grown, and it's probably grown to a point, I think I mentioned this last time, where it's getting more and more difficult when you're on your own to get everything done. So my wife will be joining me in the business to start with for a couple of days a week. She's got a full-time job, but she is going to give up certainly one day a week, and we're going to do a little bit more work at the weekend because we've got some really exciting things we want to do this year. Sadly, with other commitments and being on your own, there isn't always time. So I hope, and what she's also going to do when we've got a webinar on, she'll be able to control the cameras. So we'll be able to have even more angles and things like that. And she'll be able to answer your messages that come up, which obviously I can't sit there typing and playing and talking at the same time. But yeah, once again, thank you for your company. It's been lovely to see so many of you on board again, and I really hope you found that useful. Next Friday, we have Andy back with us. Andy's been off to this big keyboard festival where he does a lot of teaching at those sort of things. I know he's got something really good planned for you. I haven't thought about anything yet, but I'm sure we will, and I'll try and do it in a bit more time next week. So we look forward to your company next Friday when we'll be teaching you a few more little tricks of the trade. So from myself, bye for now, and thank you very much. Bye.